Okay, if you have your Bibles, please open up to the book of Daniel. Chapter 4, verse number 1. Chapter 4, verse number 1. Mr. Skipper, why don't you lead us off?
King Nebuchadnezzar, to all the peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you.
Okay, as previously mentioned, the Hebrew scholars, they thought it prudent to include the first 3 verses of chapter 4 as the last 3 verses of chapter 3. Once again, the first 3 verses of chapter 4 should probably be the last 3 verses of chapter 3. Just a bad chapter break. When we see these quite often, but you try doing it. You try dividing up the 66 books of the Bible plus the 11,000 plus chapters plus the 33,000 plus verses. It's a difficult task, but nevertheless, this proclamation, we'll just go with it being chapter 4, verse 1. Okay? This proclamation was sent forth, of course, from the epicenter of Babylon, which we'll see later was considered to be the center of the earth. And it would have reached the entire Babylonian kingdom. And this basically is the Fertile Crescent, which includes the Levant. Mr. Skipper, can you make it like 73 degrees in here? So, Israel, thank you, sir. Israel, Edom, Moab, Syria, Lebanon, modern-day Iraq, Egypt. By the way, you hear ISIS and ISIL. ISIL is more correct, and here's why. Because ISIS is the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. ISIL is the Islamic State of Iran, or Iraq, I should say, in the Levant. Levant's a French word, and it means something like sun rising, the sun rising, or the east, or going forth, maybe it's a better word, going forth of the sun. And so Levant encompasses Egypt, Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria. That's what Levant means. So some commentators pick on the president for saying ISIL instead of ISIS. But ISIL is more accurate because Al-Qaeda wants Israel and Jordan and Moab, and it's a much more accurate term. So that's what Levant means. The going forth, or it could be east, or something like that. It's originally a French word. Nevertheless, yes, sir?
What degree of Islam do you think buys into an ISIS mode of world conquering?
What degree buys into that? It's a good question. I can tell you this. In Israel, for example, half the Jews in Israel are religious and half are secular. Okay? Those Jews who are religious, who want a third temple, are not even 1% of the half of the Israelis who are religious. No one wants a third temple. And for many reasons. Because they think it would start a world war, because then you have to literally fulfill the text instead of praying 3 times a day. Why would you want to revert to their thinking to a sacrificial animal cultic system? I'm busy. I don't have time to actually go up to the Temple Mount and have an animal slaughtered and cover my sins, they would say. You know, just pray 3 times a day from the synagogue. And so I think it's kind of the same with you know, these hardcore ISIL.
So very selfish.
I think it is, yeah. Most Palestinians are just peaceful, quiet, family-oriented, religious people who don't want any problem. Right? Just leave me alone, just want to raise my kids, have them get married, go to school, pay my taxes, go to work, live a happy life.
Do you think that the Muslims are afraid to voice that opinion in that setting? You would think that the Muslim world would really against it. They would be just coming down hard on ISIS.
You would think, but if you say something long enough and loud enough, I think eventually people will believe it, no matter what it is. Good. Now, the king, of course, this is a coin we've shown before, an image of what Nebuchadnezzar would probably look like, guys, probably something like that. The king begins his proclamation with a message of comfort, wishing everyone everyone in his kingdom. So you can see right there, wishing them all shalom. Now, shalom means something like completeness or wholeness. And what's all the subjects to prosper and to increase, etc. So when you say shalom to someone, what you're really saying is, how's your completeness? Or how's your wholeness? Like in the end of Matthew chapter 5 or 6. That you may be perfect or whole or complete, just as your Father in heaven is whole or complete or perfect. So that's what shalom kind of means. So this is what Nebuchadnezzar is wishing on everyone in his kingdom.
We always heard that's peace.
Well, then,
Where does that come in?
yeah, it's kind of just turned into, that peace kind of thing. But that it really means wholeness or completeness, something like that. Okay? Verse number 2, Zach.
I thought it good to declare the signs and wonders that the Most High God has worked for me.
Okay, so Nebuchadnezzar, Nabucodonosor, Nabucodonosor of Babylon, his daddy named him, protect the borders. He proclaims to the end of the earth, i.e. his kingdom, the miracle that he just witnessed in the previous chapter by the hand of Elohim. Okay, so the message goes out. Remember, all of the princes, the governors, the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the consuls, the sheriffs, all the people who were there would have brought back home with them this testimony they saw of the hand of Elohim. And of course, he uses that name here, right? Big G, little o, little d, as you can see on the top line there. Remember, that word Elohim on the top line has the plural ending. Okay? That's why we read, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Okay? It's a plural form. Now, of course, this is the one who delivered the 3 servants from the fiery furnace. All right, verse 3. Jane?
How great are his signs, how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an eternal kingdom. His dominion endures from generation to generation.
So the king finishes this short proclamation. He's praising the supreme God, Elohim. Probably not the only God that he worships, but the supreme God, at least for now. He reveres his power. He acknowledges his authority as the King of Kings and the one who holds eternal power in his hand. Now, describing God's kingdom and dominion in this particular manner is only used one other time in all of the Hebrew Bible. And that's in Psalm 45:13. As you can see on my board here, King David says pretty much the same exact thing. Your kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and your dominion endures through all generations. Okay, so Nebuchadnezzar and Daniel, the only ones who really talk this way, at least recorded in the text. Verse 4. Elena.
I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at ease in my house and flourishing in my palace.
Okay. Now, according to the 5th century Greek BC, Greek historian Herodotus, he gives us some dimensions on the ancient city of Babylon, where in this verse he's resting in his house and he's flourishing in his palace. So what were the dimensions of Babylon? Well, Herodotus tells us that it was 14 miles square on each side. How far is it from here to Red Bluff? Is it about
30 miles.
Is it? Okay. Okay, so if you walk from here to Red Bluff 30 miles, it's like walking halfway around Babylon. Okay? Now this probably includes its suburbs, etc. Like in the book of Jonah, right, with the city of Nineveh in chapter 3. And the word of the Lord came unto Jonah the second time, saying, Arise, go unto Nineveh, that great city, and preach unto it the preaching that it bid thee. So Jonah rose and went unto Nineveh. And Nineveh was an exceeding great city of 3 days walk. 3 days walk. Now, of course, it would take 3 days to walk around Nineveh. Right? It was just probably from one extreme pole to the other pole, through all the suburbs and etc. Now, not only is this massive city 14 miles square on each side. It's surrounded by a 56-mile-long wall, 300 foot high, according to Herodotus, and 25 foot thick.
Could you give those dimensions again?
Yeah, 14 miles square, 56-mile-long wall, 300 foot high wall, 25 foot thick wall with 8 gates. Now, I have been to the Oriental Museum in Chicago many times, but I don't remember, Ron, do they have a representation of the Ishtar Gate or anything like that there when you were there?
They have some plaster reliefs, but I don't know if they have any demonstrating. No, I didn't see it.
Well, here's...
Where's the museum in Chicago?
It's oh yeah, you should go there. You're going to Chicago. I can give you the information during break. It's called the Oriental Museum. It's fantastic. So, here's one of the gates. Okay. The city had 8 gates. Now, there was a secondary wall. See the first wall right here? Then you have a secondary wall. And that wall was a good 75 foot behind the first wall, and it was some 35 foot deep into the ground. There was reportedly over 250 towers reaching hundreds of feet high surrounding the city. Here's some soldiers, American soldiers in Iraq, and a portion of the rebuilt city of Babylon by Saddam Hussein. And these are what we're talking about, these towers here, okay? Something like 250 of these kind of things. The original Babylon dotted it. Now, Jerusalem, for example, it says in Psalm 42 to walk around Jerusalem and to count its towers. So, do you think I did it? Yes. I did it. And including the gates, which you should. In Psalm 42, there are exactly 40 towers in the old walls of Jerusalem, which is a perfect number, which fits really nice. Okay? It's a fun thing to do one day. It's a fun thing to do. Okay, so the streets of the city, right? We're in verse 4, he's in his house, he's resting in his palace. The streets of the city were paved with slab stones, 3 foot square, that led to the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. We'll talk more about those another time. The city had over 50 temples in it, guys, and countless altars to Ishtar, among others. Now, the jewel of the city, of course, was the palace of Nebuchadnezzar, probably connected to the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, which was considered to be, and I'm sure it was, the most magnificent building ever built on planet Earth. This guy's the head of gold. Okay? There are no expenses here. Anything's possible. So this is where the king was free from his care, and where he prospered, and where he was thriving and growing. Everything's okay on the home front. The economy's well, politics are well, religion's going well, people are paying their taxes. Militarily, everything is pretty much under control, so we can really grow like a tree here and thrive. On the heels of all that data, oh boy, verse 5. Catherine.
I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts upon my bed and the visions of my head troubled me.
Okay, so before describing the content of the dream, the king depicts his fear. And I'm sure he had good reason to be afraid on the heels of chapter 2. Now, some commentators date this chapter to 570 BC. We could talk more about that later, but that may be a chronological pattern if you want to make a note on that. Now, if that is the case, the events of chapter 2 happened like 33 years earlier, the previous dream of the statue. and 15 years, if this is the correct dating, I'm not exactly sure quite yet, but if it is, 15 years after the fiery furnace incident, i.e. we're at the end of Nebuchadnezzar's career, guys. And we'll see that once we get to the end of the chapter for sure. We're at the end of this guy's career. Now, a little bit of historical backdrop. Approximately 2 years before the dream, 2 years or so, Nebuchadnezzar invaded Tyre. Now, what you're looking at here is not Nebuchadnezzar's doing. This is right after Nebuchadnezzar, not right after. 2 kingdoms after Nebuchadnezzar during the time of Alexander the Great. See, when Nebuchadnezzar came to Tyre, he conquered the mainland. Now, the Isle of Tyre, this is kind of like Fort Knox, okay? And so, did Nebuchadnezzar go from here to here? Well, what do the scriptures say? Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, made his army labor hard against Tyre. Right? This is 2 years before what's happening here takes place. Every head was made bald and every shoulder was rubbed bare. Yet neither he nor his army got anything from Tyre to make the labor that he had performed against it. So, what does this mean? Every head was made bald and every shoulder was rubbed bare. What it means is that Nebuchadnezzar conquered the mainland, right here, and razed the city, or made much of it rubble, and then, through forced labor, the people of Tyre, the reason they made their head bald and their shoulders bare was by basket by basket by basket. They took the rubble of the mainland city and started to make a causeway to come out to Fort Knox, something like that. Okay, but they could never do it, as we saw, the Bible tells us right here. They got nothing from Tyre, i.e. they couldn't break the bank. But of course later, Alexander the Great comes, right, 2 kingdoms later, right, and finishes the job, connecting the route to the Isle. Then, after that battle took place, he went down to Egypt, going up here from Tyre, down to Egypt, and we see this in Jeremiah 44:30. Thus saith the Lord, behold, I will give Pharaoh Hophra, king of Egypt, into the hand of his enemies, and into the hand of them that seek his life, as I gave Zedekiah, king of Judah, into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, his enemy, and that sought his life. So he goes sweeping west all the way to wash his weapons in the Mediterranean Sea, conquers all that, goes down to Egypt, conquers Egypt. So 2 years before this was written, he's at the greatest extent of his reach of his kingdom. He's at his zenith, his height, his pinnacle, i.e. he's a big, huge, strong tree where all of these beasts of the field and all of these nations can rest under him. Okay.
2 years before the dream.
Approximately, if our dating is right, 2 years before chapter 4. Yeah, 2 years before chapter 4. Okay, all that makes sense? A little bit backdrop? Okay, Zach, verse 6.
Therefore, I issued a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known to me the interpretation of the dream.
So, continuing this writing, this discourse in the first person, the king summons these guilds of wise men that we've already heard about in chapter 2, right? Some probably 33 years earlier. Summons them to the throne room, reveals to them not the dream itself, but the interpretation. Okay? Tell me the interpretation of the dream. All right, verse 7, Mr. Skipper.
Then the magicians, the enchanters, the Chaldeans, the astrologers came in, and I told them the dream, that they could not make known to me its interpretation.
Okay, so parallel to chapter 2, same thing is going on. These quote-unquote wise men of Babylon, and we already kind of unpacked who they were, right? Some of them have Egyptian loan words. There may be captives taken from Egypt back into the throne room of Nebuchadnezzar. They could read hieroglyphics. They could read the sacred writings, all these kind of things. They're summoned to interpret the dream, but of course they're dismissed, just like in chapter 2, failing to understand the dream and the appointed time. which should, in our mind's eye, of course, set us up right away for the Hebrew prophet to show up on the scene and save the day. Verse 8. Kathy.
But at the last Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belteshazzar, according to the name of my God, and in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And before him I told the dream.
Great. So once this foolishness had ended, the prophet of the Most High God entered into the throne room. The author is once again trying to draw parallels between Joseph and Daniel. Remember, they're both taken captive. They're both young men when they're taken captive. They're both, well, we don't know what tribe Daniel's from. God is my judge. Maybe he's from Dan. I don't know. They're both put in the prison. They're both raised, not prison, they're both put into the school of Egypt, as it were. They're both raised into the ranks. They're both brought to the king. They're both the saviors of the world, etc. Okay? So, just like in Genesis 41:38, Pharaoh says, "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the spirit of the God?" And what does Nebuchadnezzar say here? "And in whom is the spirit of the holy God?" Same thing. The author's just drawing on the Joseph parallels. Now, Nebuchadnezzar is likely attributing the spiritual gifts of Daniel not to the Most High God, not to Elohim, but to the deity that Daniel is named after, namely Bel, the god of Babylon. Remember, Daniel's name means something like the one whom Bel favors, the Prince of Bel, not the Prince of Bel Air. Exactly.
Is that B-E-L-L or B-E-L-T?
One L.
Thank you.
All right, and there's an image of him slaying a dragon. Okay. Something like that. Okay. Verse 9. Ron, with that one.
Belteshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in thee, and those who bear trouble with thee, tell me the visions of the dream that I have seen, and the interpretation thereof.
So, possibly, King Nebuchadnezzar, like King Ahab, waited until all of his yes men were done blowing hot air, so called in the prophet, the Hebrew prophet, knowing that the interpretation from the Hebrew prophet would be foreboding, bad news, just like Ahab does here in 1 Kings 22:8. The king of Israel answered Jehoshaphat, "There is still one prophet, though, whom we can inquire of the Lord, but I hate him because he never prophesies anything good about me. But I was bad. He is Micaiah, the son of Imlah. The king should not say such a thing," Jehoshaphat replied. By the way, Micaiah the prophet, in 1 Kings 22, the last words of Micaiah the prophet are the first words of Micah the prophet. The last words of Micaiah recorded are the first words in the book of Micah. So I surmise Micah's parents named him after Micaiah, maybe. And then to honor that, he starts out his book with the last words of the prophet. Now, this is the first time Daniel is given this new title, maybe this promoted title that he has, as the master of the magicians. It's similar to his designation given some 33 years earlier, chapter 2, verse 48, but specifically it's the first time he's called this, the master of the magicians, i.e. he's, of course, promoted, right? We remember that. Now, over time, a reputation that nothing was too difficult for Daniel became so prominent that we have here in Ezekiel 28:3 that Ezekiel uses Daniel as an epitome of wisdom. Well, in this, he's taunting the king of Tyre. In Isaiah 14, guys, it's not talking about the fall of the devil. Okay? Ezekiel 28 is not talking about the fall of the devil. We'll talk about it later. In Isaiah 14, he's probably talking about the future king of Babylon. Ezekiel 28, he's he's using a common entire folklore city about creation, their creation account. He's kind of using that as his springboard to write Ezekiel 28. Everyone always goes to Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28 for the fall of Satan in the Old Testament, but I think that's mistaken. But we can talk about that later, okay? Nevertheless, it says there, you regard yourself as wiser than Daniel and think no secret is hidden from you. So Daniel, over time, even, right, we're talking about, he's a contemporary of Daniel, but nevertheless, over time, Daniel is a epitome of wisdom. Verse 10. Verse 10. Elena.
Now these were the visions in my mind as I lay on my bed. I was looking, and behold, there was a tree in the midst of the earth, and its height was great. Okay, so the king is starting to explain the dream, and right off the bat, we have this symbol of a tree, a mysterious tree. Now, the symbol of a tree in Scripture can be symbolic in other places for a mighty king. An example of that would be in Ezekiel 31, verses 2 and 3. In Ezekiel 31, 2 and 3 says, Son of man, speak unto Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and to his multitude, whom art thou like in thy greatness? Behold, the Assyrian was a cedar in Lebanon with fair branches, etc. It can also represent a tree, and Scripture can represent the growth of a kingdom. And that's found in the 13th chapter of Luke, verse 19. The growth of a kingdom. It's like a mustard seed, which a man took and planted in his garden, and grew and became a tree, and the birds perched in its branches. Let's see my box of tricks. So, if anyone wants a mustard seed, you can come up and get one. Right here. I'll just put a couple on the table here. Okay? And there you go. There's some mustard seeds. Okay. Trees in Scripture can also signify the righteous, like in Psalm 1:3. Planted by the banks of the river that brings forth his fruit in his season, his leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. Or trees can often represent wicked people, like in Malachi 4:1. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saying the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. Now, what may be going on here is this may be a little hint. Maybe it's a play on word, branch. The wicked will not have the branch, i.e., the Lord Jesus is called the branch in Zechariah chapter 3. Maybe. Okay. Maybe. Now, we see here that the tree was in Middle Earth. We're not talking about Lord of the Rings here, okay? The tree is in the middle of the earth, and it suggests the centrality, the power, the importance of the empires in the affairs of the whole world. Also, the fact that the tree was in the middle reminds the reader, of course, of the tree of life in Genesis 2:9. And he planted the tree in the midst of the garden, right? Smack dab in the middle. The ancient Babylonians, there's ziggurats built around this time in the 6th century, you know, those kind of step pyramid kind of structures. Some of them are called, in English, they transliterated the foundation of heaven and earth. The ziggurat was called the foundation of heaven and earth. And along with other clues, it suggests that the Babylonians, like the Jews, believed that their capital city was divinely chosen and was the umbilical cord between heaven and earth. Just like Ezekiel talks about in 38:12. At the end of it, it talks about, it's getting to talking about Jerusalem at the center of the land, at the middle of the earth. There's just this idea, and also in the Psalms, that Jerusalem is the fountainhead, it's the heartbeat of earth. So the Jews think this about their city, which is true. Not because I was married there, but because the Bible says so. But
And then, of course, the Babylonians believe about their city too, right? That it's the center of the earth.
Does it have anything to do with their thoughts of creation in the garden?
That's a good question.
Because I know the Jews didn't think that, so I wondered if that
Sure. Well, some Jews believe the Garden of Eden was in Jerusalem.
That's what I mean, but we're talking about here in Daniel, we're talking
The
about Babylon.
Babylonians, right? Yeah, so where does this come from is the question. We're not sure. But we know that they call their ziggurats, right? What did I say? The foundation of heaven and earth. We see that the tree reaches up to heaven. Yeah, I'm sure they thought it was the center of the earth. Okay, verse 11, Zach.
The tree grew and became strong. Its height reached the heavens, and it could be seen to the ends of all the earth.
Okay, so the kingdom, yet to be identified. We don't know who this is yet. Let's not jump to the gun. It expanded its borders. It grew. It was strong. It grew in military dominance, its strength. It grew throughout the world. And the magnificence and the brilliance of the form of government connected heaven to earth, i.e. the head of gold. So, of course, what this may remind us of is what took place in the same exact place many, many years before, in Genesis 11:4, in the construction of the Tower of Babel. Their goal, their aim was, come, let us make us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven. Same idea is going on in Genesis 11:4, and then in this passage. Make sense? Good.
You think Nebuchadnezzar knew that? I mean, it just...
New to Genesis 11 account? That's a good question.
It just, never mind.
I'm not sure. You never know? Okay, verse 12. Verse 12. Jane?
Its leaves were beautiful, its fruit abundant, and on it was food for all. Under it the beasts of the field found shelter, and the birds of the air lived in its branches. From it every creature was fed.
Okay, so the kingdom is identified as being seen by the whole world. Prosperous, producing enough food to provide for all the needs of all the peoples, all the languages, all the nations, all the tongues under its dominion. Now, kind of as a footnote, there's our friends dwelling under the tree. What you're looking at here is the best picture I can get of an inscription in Lebanon, and it's called the B-R-I-S-A inscription, and it's carved on rocks near the Bekaa Valley, just north of Israel in Lebanon, and it reads very similar to this verse. It says, part of it says, speaking of Nebuchadnezzar, it says, under its everlasting shadow I have gathered all the people in peace. Okay? It's the same idea that Daniel is speaking of here. Right? This inscription says, I have gathered in its everlasting shadow all the people of peace. So it's just a similar language to this verse. Right? Nebuchadnezzar sees himself as the provider, as the sustainer of the whole world. Verse 13. Verse 13. Mr. Skipper.
When I saw the visions of my head as I lay in bed, and behold, a watcher, the Holy One, came down from heaven.
So suddenly we have on the scene an angelic messenger who appears from the third heaven. Now its designation is as a watcher and a holy one. Now this is only one person. It's the word "and" is used for emphasis. A watcher and a holy one. It's just talking about one person. It's using two words linked by the conjunction "and." So it's one guy coming down who's a heavenly being. Now, the designation as an angel being a watcher, that word watcher, it only appears in the book of Daniel in all of the Old Testament, but in extra biblical sources, it appears, for example, like right here in the book of Enoch. Watcher is always a name for angels in later Hebrew writings. Okay? Daniel and later, whether they're canonical or non-canonical, right? Watcher equals angel. I know it's very simplistic, but it is what it is. All right, verse number 14, Kathy.
Cried aloud and said thus, hew down the tree and cut off its branches, shake off its leaves, scatter its fruit, let the beasts get away from under it, and the fowls from its branches.
So the declaration from the messenger from the third heaven is what? It's the impending destruction of this yet unnamed kingdom. Similarly, like the enemies of Jeremiah, who say in 11:19, I have been like a gentle lamb led to the slaughter. I did not realize that they had plotted against me, saying, let us destroy the tree and its fruit, let us cut him off from the land of the living, that his name be remembered no more. Okay. All right. Now what?
Why did this from it, fruit in its tree, the beast shall under it, and now it's figured out that it is his branches.
Why the change in the gender?
Pronouns changed.
Yes. That's a good observation.
Yeah, it is.
That's a good observation. Let me think on that. Okay, verse 15. Elena.
It leaves the stump with its roots in the ground, but with a band of iron and bronze around it, and the new grass of the field, and let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and let him share with the beasts in the grass of the earth.
Okay, there you go. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. That's a pretty big stump. The foreboding article calls for the tree to be cut down, but through the scent of water, over time, it will bud, and the tree will bring forth branches like a plant. The tree will come back to life. At the end of the oracle that we saw earlier in Ezekiel 31:18, the author transfers the imagery from agricultural to human imagery. Which of the trees of Eden can be compared with you in splendor and majesty? Yes, you too will be brought down with the trees of Eden to the earth below. You will lie among the uncircumcised with those killed by the sword. This is Pharaoh and all his words, declares the sovereign Lord. So he switches from tree imagery to the human imagery, just like Daniel does right here. The author does the same thing by stating that the tree, or i.e. person, will soon be imprisoned in the field in an open-air prison, whose cellmates are the beasts of the field. There is an ironic turn of events here, as the one who was once the provider and protector and shield for these beasts of the field now only has the beasts of the field to comfort him. Verse 16. Ron, can you read that, please?
That his heart to change from man, his heart given unto him, and 7 times.
Okay. The heart, when it's spoken of figuratively in the scriptures, is mentioned over 800 times, guys. There is no geographical distance in the world of the Bible between the mind and the heart. They're one and the same. The mind and the heart. No geographical distance between the mind and the heart. As we see here, for example, in Proverbs 4:23, out of the heart flow all the issues of life. Luke 6:45, a good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of, i.e. it's the location of human character. It's the location of human character. It's the aspect of man wherewith God is most concerned. 1 Samuel 16:7. The Lord sees not as man sees, for man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. So the demeanor, the conduct, the appearance of this man, the inner control center of this man is going to be changed from human into a beast for 7 times. For 7 times. Sheva, that's where you get the word Beersheba from. Beersheba means maybe the oath of 7 oaths or promises, or it could mean maybe the well of 7. Sheva. So Sheva, Idan. Now, Idan means times. Times. Now, it's an Aramaic word, of course, because we're still in the Aramaic section, which means a time of duration or a year, one or the other. A time of duration or a year, 360-day year. As a result, the man is given, he's sentenced to the 7-year, the 7 duration period in this open-air prison. Now, why 7 years? That's a good question. The famous medieval rabbi Rashi, there's a representation of him there, suggested 7 years because that's how long it took to build the temple which Nebuchadnezzar destroyed. When you do the deduction from 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 1 and 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 38. King Solomon started building the temple in the 4th year of his reign, finished it in the 11th year of his reign, i.e. 7 years. Okay? Maybe.
Who was the rabbi?
Rashi. R-A-S-H-I. It's a short form of Rabbi Shlomo Yitzhak. So it's Rabbi Shlomo Yitzhak, which is a mouthful to say, you just make Rashi. Okay. Verse 17, exactly.
This decision is by the decree of the watchers, and the sentence by the word of the holy ones, in order that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, gives it to whomever he will, and sets over the lowest of the men.
Okay, thank you. So the king's sentence is determined. It's finished from on high. It's been delivered by the messenger. That the entire Babylonian Empire and even beyond its borders may recognize the God of the Hebrews as the Most High God, the only wise God. This angelic court, we could talk more about it, but we're not. These are the ones who are all them that are about God, quote unquote, in Psalm 89:7. It could be when I saw 24 elders on the thrones, maybe, who knows, 10,000 times 10,000s and thousands and thousands around the throne. We're not exactly sure. But nevertheless, this court in heaven is come up with the verdict, it's decided, it's delivered. Now, the end of the verse goes on to say that he sets up over it the lowest or the worst or the basis of men. And every single ruler of the nations of the world from the very beginning to this very day, every single ruler has been given that position by the divine intervention of the Most High God. Okay? Every single, right? This is the GA. Okay? All these guys have been appointed by the Lord God to rule when and where they rule. Just like Nebuchadnezzar was. All right, verse number 18. Verse 18. Elena.
This is the dream which I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen. Now you, Belshazzar, tell me its interpretation, inasmuch as
So once again, the king, recognizing the fallibility, the lies, the deceit, the weakness of his inner circle, he demands of the master of the magicians to once again declare the meaning of the dream. Because he's the only one, just like Joseph, who has the spirit of God or the spirit of the gods in him. Verse 19. Mr. Skipper.
Then Daniel, whose name is Belteshazzar, was dismayed for a while, and his thoughts alarmed him. The king answered and said, Belteshazzar, let not the dream or the interpretation alarm you. Belteshazzar answered and said, My lord, may the dream be for those who hate you, and its interpretation for your enemies.
Okay, so instantly, after this petition by the king, Daniel is amazed for an hour. And we talked about this word last week, I think. Right? The word hour only occurs 5 times in the whole Hebrew Scriptures. Every single time is in the book of Daniel. They all occur after the Babylonian deportation. We talked about how the Jews came under the influence of the Babylonians for their calendar and for their clocks, and how the Greeks learned from the Babylonians the hour, and that after they're brought back from Babylon to Jerusalem, then the word hour appears in the Hebrew Scriptures, New Testament appearances, etc. Now, after trying to comfort his ace magician, the prophet informs the king that the interpretation is bad news. It's ominous.
Could you paraphrase that last phrase in there?
Sure.
My Lord, the dream be to them that hate thee, and the interpretation thereof to thine enemies.
I think it could be something like, O king, live forever. The dream that you just had is from those who are out to get you. And the way it's going to be fulfilled is by your destruction. Something like that. Good. 4 verse 20. Chapter 4 verse 20. Elena.
The tree that you saw, which became large and grew strong, whose height reached to the sky and was visible to all the earth.
Okay, so this magnificent kingdom, which grew from a sapling, is again described as being, as it were, the umbilical cord, the connection between heaven and earth. Author has not yet acknowledged the identity of this kingdom yet, but it reaches and connects heaven and earth. That's the idea. Yeah.
So is the author telling us that it's going to come down because it's reached heaven?
We'll get there. Why will the tree come down? Good question. Good thought. All right. Verse 21. Zach.
Whose leaves were lovely and its fruit abundant, and which was food for all, under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and whose branches the birds of heaven had their home.
So Daniel continues to describe the glory, the zenith, the health of the kingdom, which is, by the way, right now, in the time of Nebuchadnezzar. Right, he just conquered Tyre, he washed his weapons at the Mediterranean Sea, he went all the way down to Egypt, conquered Egypt. I mean, he is resting at his home, and he is flourishing like a tree. So he continues to describe the glory, the health of the kingdom, its ability to provide substance, protection, everything that you need for all of its subjects. Okay. 22. Catherine.
This time, it is thou, O king, that art grown and become strong. Now he says it. For thy greatness is grown and reaches unto heaven, and thy dominion to all the ends of the earth.
So finally, the author reveals to us that which we have suspected all along, that Nebuchadnezzar is symbolically represented, and his kingdom represented as a tree. Now, the fact that the kingdom grew, or the sapling grew into this mighty tree in the center of the earth, what is this referring to? Well, it's probably referring to the chart that you can see behind me. That the establishment of the Neo-Babylonian Empire started by his father Nabopolassar in about 626 BC, and the growth, the subsequent dominance of the kingdom on the world stage grew to its greatest strength, its greatest power, its greatest might during the time of Nebuchadnezzar. It was so, the growth of his kingdom was so astronomical that in their mind's eye, it encompassed the whole world. Or there's nothing beyond these borders that's even worth conquering. We could if we wanted to, but there's nothing even worth conquering behind these borders. Okay? I.e., the kingdom reaches up to heaven. Okay. Verse 23. Verse 23. Jane?
You, O king, saw a messenger, a holy one, coming down from heaven and saying, cut down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump, bound with iron and bronze in the grass of the field, while its roots remain in the ground. Let him be drenched with the dew of the heaven. Let him live like the wild animals until 7 times pass by for him.
Okay. He turns from that into that. So, yes. Yes. Daniel repeats the punishment, that the punishment is going to be imminent, and his incarceration, he's going to be jailed with the beasts of the field for the 7-year period, but we have here the hope of rehabilitation. Verse 24. Verse 24. Zach?
This is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree of the Most High, which has come upon you, which has come upon my lord the king.
Okay, so the prophet is compelled to remind the head of gold that the sentence came from the court of the Most High God, and that the sentence cannot be exonerated. Let's move to verse 25. Captain, get that one, please.
But they shall drive thee from men, thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and they shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and they shall wet thee with the dew of the heaven, and 7 times shall pass over thee, till thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whosoever dwell.
So Daniel is not specific, but it is likely that once the inner court of Nebuchadnezzar recognizes his madness, that they're going to be the ones who are going to quietly remove him from the throne by force. Very quietly. And you don't want to cause waves. If the head of gold has gone mad, right, the king is going to have a coup d'etat and he's going to crumble instantly. So it's quite probable that during this 7-year period, no one knew. No one knew at all. It's possible what Nebuchadnezzar was going through. Now, in order to save any honor the king had, the hierarchy, the inner circle, his vice president, i.e., they would conceal the king as he roamed around in the gardens, eating grass and drinking out of puddles. And you could very easily do this, not very easily, you could do this within these high walls that we just mentioned. Remember, some of those walls are how high? 30 feet plus high. And you could maybe get away with it for a 7-year period. Now, one of the possibilities is that some of these magi might even believe that this was God possessing Nebuchadnezzar, and that this was a good thing that was happening to him. Some kind of strange deity, and one of the gods of Babylon had now possessed him. He is now the God-man, the incarnation of that particular deity on earth. It's a possibility. I mean, how else will they explain his badness? Right? We're talking about superstitious people, where some god or some gods are lurking behind every corner to hurt you or to bless you or something like that. Verse, yes?
Wasn't Daniel like the vice president?
Yeah. In a sense he was, wasn't he? Yeah.
So if that was in fact the case, he was probably helping.
That's a possibility. Maybe Daniel is pulling the strings behind the scenes, keeping the government going. Because we'll see later that nowhere in any Babylonian archaeology is there ever a co-regent, a fellow ruler, ruling with Nebuchadnezzar. But we'll get there in a minute. Verse 26. Verse 26, Zach.
And inasmuch as he gave the command to leave the stump and the roots of the tree, your kingdom shall be assured to you after you come to know that heaven rules.
Okay, so a promise now is made to the king that while he's serving his judicial sentence, while he's serving a 7-year sentence in the open-air prison, that the Neo-Babylonian kingdom is going to remain in his control. How that happens, we can only surmise, because the author of Daniel or archaeology doesn't tell us of any co-regent or any kind of assistant ruler or nothing like that.
Not a blank.
Nothing. So, I mean, who else would it be? Like Daniel, right? The second in command, right? Verse 27. Verse 27. Mr. Skipper, you got that one, please?
Therefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable to you. Break off your sins by practicing righteousness, and your iniquities by showing mercy to the oppressed, that there may perhaps be a length of your prosperity.
So this is the zenith, the summit, the apex, the top, the main point of Daniel's speech, his dialogue before the king. The prophet is begging the king to hearken to Daniel's words, his counsel. In the scriptures, Proverbs 16:12, it is an abomination to kings to do evil, for the throne is established by righteousness. Daniel is not imploring King Nebuchadnezzar that a change of his social policies will save him. When he's telling the king to break off your sins by righteousness, etc. It's not your policies that are going to save you, but a change of heart. A change of heart. And we already mentioned, we've unpacked what heart means, right? The inner control center of the person. Verse number 28. 28. Young Luna.
All these things did happen to King
Nebuchadnezzar. Very good. In other words, all that the Most High God has spoken, none of it will fall to the ground. None of it will fall to the ground is a poetic way of saying it will all be fulfilled. Everything he has said will happen. Verse 29. Verse 29. Zach?
At the end of the 12 months, he was walking about the royal palace of Babylon.
So the Babylonian calendar, just like the Hebrew calendar, begins in March, April. And this consisted of a 12-month calendar, 30 days in each month. Now, the Babylonian calendar was apparently adopted in Israel after the Jews returned from Babylon back to Jerusalem. Many of the Hebrew months correspond with the Babylonian month names, as you can see right here. Adaru, Adar. Kislemu, Kislev, same thing, same root. Okay, so not only are they bringing back this idea now of an hour, and maybe a sundial, and all of this kind of mathematics and astronomy and knowledge, they're bringing back the calendar, a new calendar into the land of Israel. Okay, the king right here is literally walking upon or above his palace. Let's just say he's walking on the roof of the palace. Remember, in the world of the Bible, everyone's roof is flat. Yes?
Back in 29, when we're at the end of 12 months,
Right.
what was he doing those 12 months?
That's a good question.
Was he trying to reform? Was he?
It doesn't say, does it? It's a possibility that, we don't know. At the end of the 12 months, the year's up. Good question. What took place in those 12 months? Oh, we know whatever took place was good because, the curse is put on him right now. So the king's walking on the roof of his palace, as we can see here, which everyone did at that time of year. Unlike America, when the roofs are like this, right? All the roofs there are like that. The 4th century church historian Eusebius, he quotes an earlier source, a 3rd century BC, so you're talking 700 years difference between these guys, a Greek historian who was talking about Nebuchadnezzar. And he said, the Greek historian said, having ascended to the roof of his palace, he became inspired or possessed by some god. Okay, so you have an extra biblical source, 300, 200 years after Daniel. This account was so infamous, what happened to Nebuchadnezzar, that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years later, you have a Greek historian writing about the same exact thing. Okay? He says he was up on the roof of his palace, just like we have here. And then the Greek, who's not a Bible believer, right, says that he was possessed by some god. Okay? Which is probably what the Babylonians believed. It's in your court circle. That, oh, now we have a manifestation of the incarnation of Marduk or Bel or whoever. Anyone?
What was that? Historian's name?
The Greek historian, his name was Mega, M-E-G-A, not mine. Sthenses, S-T-H-E-N-E-S. He's 3rd century BC Greek historian. Not Megamind. Verse 30. Zach.
The king spoke, saying, is not this great Babylon that I have built for a royal dwelling by my might and power, and for the honor of my majesty?
Okay, yeah. So, this archaeological object, the so-called East India House Foundation tablet, it's on display at the British Museum. The British Museum is on my bucket list. I would also have to go to Downton Abbey since I was there, though, which is fine with me. It dates from the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, and it describes the religious devotion of the king, and it describes the king's building works, just like this passage does. This is not this Babylon which I have built. And it similarly states, just like this verse does, it says in your quote, may the temple I have built endure forever, and may I be satisfied with its splendor. So once again, just like the Brissa inscription we saw that relates to the king as providing protection for everyone under his government, right here you have another extra biblical source, right? This East India House tablet that pretty much does the same exact thing. It's not this Babylon I have built. Okay. Verse 31. Mr. Skipper.
While the words were still in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken, the kingdom has departed from you.
So, like Herod Agrippa I, some 600 years later, as soon as blasphemy entered into the king's heart, he was judged, like in Acts 12, 21, and 22. On the appointed day, Herod, and this isn't Herod the Great, guys, right? This is Herod the Great, the first, wearing his royal robes, sat on his throne and delivered a public address to the people. They shouted, "This is the voice of a God, not of a man." And of course, he thinks in his heart that this is true, and instantly, right, he's smitten and eaten by worms. Same idea. Okay, same idea. Verse 32. Elena.
And you will be driven away from mankind, and your dwelling place will be with the beasts of the field. You will be given grass to eat like cattle, and 7 periods of time will pass over you until you recognize that the Most High is ruler over the realm of mankind and bestows it on whomever he wishes.
Okay, chapter 4, verse 25. The voice from heaven repeats verbatim the condemning words of Daniel in chapter 4, verse 25. Verse 33. Kathy.
The same hour was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from him and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, until his hairs were grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like birds' claws.
So we have some more information here, don't we, on his outward appearance. His hair like eagle feathers and his nail like bird's claws. The medical term for this form of insanity is called boanthropy. It means oxman. Oxman. In 1946, Dr. Raymond Harrison, he was of Britain, he recorded his experiences of observing a modern day case of boanthropy. This is just a short sum up of what he observed. He observed that the patient's only physical abnormality was the lengthening of his hair and a thickening condition of the nails, just like yours. I wonder if the guy living in the campsite across the street had a boy.
Oh, my.
You never know. The patient, under Harrison's evaluation, did this, spent the entire day outside from dusk till dawn. Of course, eating handfuls of grass and drinking water out of the puddles. That's crazy. Yes, but this is boanthropy, a very rare medical disease, form of insanity, but it has been recorded. So if you ever wanted to do a paper on this portion of the book of Daniel and boanthropy, that'd be pretty cool. This reminds us, of course, of Proverbs 21:1. The king's heart is like a stream of water directed by the Lord, and he guides it wherever he pleases. Yes, Mr. Skipper.
Does that mean he is conscious?
Yes.
It's still in his right mind?
If Nebuchadnezzar was anything like this man in 1946, yes. This
Can
man
you speak?
He could speak. He obeyed all of the hospital rules. He wasn't belligerent. He didn't hurt anyone. He had a condition where, like I just read, his nails grew thick, his hair grew long. Kind of looks like some of the, never mind. I don't know what this big thing about beards is nowadays, but, he totally behaved himself. He just drank out of a puddle and ate handfuls of grass and walked around he walked around on a rock. But, just act like a cow all day. And he would not eat any of the food offered inside the cafeteria.
Surprised he didn't die of malnutrition, he was just eating grass. or
Well,
water.
that's a good question. Maybe the story needs to be a little bit more unpacked. Maybe I don't have all the facts, maybe.
So what was the doctor's name? The one-
Harrison?
That's his last name?
Yeah, Raymond Harrison, 1946. Okay. Verse 34. Okay, so at the end of the 7-year period, the king, quote unquote, lifts up his eyes. This is a figurative expression which seeking the help of the Most High. That's what you're doing when you lift up your eyes. Just like in Psalm 123:1. I will lift up my eyes unto the Lord, the one enthroned in heaven. O God that dwellest in the heavens. Lifting up your eyes to God. Okay, perhaps, who knows, perhaps this is another challenge they've been going on here between the God of Babylon and the God of the Jews. Just like, who is that God that will deliver you out of my hand? Chapter 3. Maybe this is a battle between Nabu, who's the Babylonian God of understanding and wisdom, who is Nebuchadnezzar's namesake. Nevertheless, the king's faculties are completely restored, and therefore a song of praise to the Most High, not the only, the Most High God, ensues. There may be a clue, an archaeological clue, guys, that alludes to this time of Nebuchadnezzar's madness. Maybe. There's a Syriologist, and his last name is Grayson, A.K. Grayson, and he translated and published a cuneiform tablet from Akkadian into English. It's on display at the British Museum, and it states, quote unquote, and there's much more, but it states in there, his life appeared to him of no value. His life appeared to no value. He wouldn't, and I'll go on to say that he would not have meetings with his courts. He would not meet with his sons. He would not meet with his daughters. He wouldn't go out. He was just, it says it right there in the tablet. Okay? And this could be inferring to this 7-year period, right, where his life appeared to have no value. He's not communicating with any of his ambassadors, his children, his family, nothing. He's just out there. Sounds like it. He continually, that tablet goes on to say, he gave contradictory orders during this time period. Milk, water. I mean, you know, he's saying all these kind of contradictory orders. He couldn't even recognize familiar faces, the tablet goes on to say. He did not, during this time, contribute to any of his building projects. I mean, this is what he did. And there is also probably evidence that the Babylonian military didn't partake in any military operations during this 7-year period. Verse 35. Verse 35. Jane?
All the people of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven and the peoples of the earth. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, what have you done?
Okay, so the praise continues throughout the end of the chapter. The praise continues by the restored king, who acknowledges that man is reckoned as nothing by the God of the Most High. This is kind of like in Job 25. What is man that thou art mindful of him, and the son of man that thou visitest him? And it goes on to say that he's the King James says worm, but it's maggot. So in comparison to God, way, way, way up high, looking down on you, it's like you just look like a little tiny worthless maggot. And of course that's the Shuhites view, whereas Job then goes on to say, then Job answered and said, how great are your promises and your strength. Okay, the terms heaven and earth are used here in opposition in this verse to express the totality of the Most High's domain. He has domain in heaven and earth. Now, we also see a mention here of the hand of God. And the hand of God is portrayed in the scriptures both in a positive and also in a negative sense. Positive. Ecclesiastes 2:24. A person can do nothing better than to eat, drink, and find satisfaction in their own toil. This, too, I see is from the hand of God. Okay? And then in the negative, like in Job 19:21. Have pity upon me, have pity upon me, O you, my friends, for the hand of God has touched me. 2 more verses. Verse 36. 36. Zach.
At the same time, my reason returned to me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my honor and my splendor returned to me. My counselor and my nobles restored to me. I was restored to my kingdom, and excellent majesty was added to me.
Okay, so in opposition to when his boastful words left his mouth and insanity struck him instantly, now when words of confession and praise leave his lips, his glory was instantaneously restored unto him. The important ranks of his advisors once again held appointments with him. The king was even greater than he was before, and unlike that tablet, now he could build, now he could recognize familiar faces, now he could meet with his counselors, etc. And then verse number 37, Elena.
Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise, exalt, and honor the King of heaven. For all his works are true and his ways just, and he is able to humble those who walk in pride.
The great king did not live long after the events of this chapter. In fact, this is the last time in the book that the king is mentioned as being alive. Two things. Number one, his last recorded words are words of praise to the Most High God. And number two, the chapter ends the same way it begins, with the king speaking in the first person and flourishing in his palace. Questions, comments, concerns?
So we don't know how old or how far after this that he died.
We do not. We do not.